Welcome to the channel. Chapter 1.5 The Reality of Truth and Its Implications. The Truth Regarding Truth. This chapter is not part of the process the book exposes, by which we will gain the capacity to direct our life experience, but is indeed extremely important for the reader to comprehend. There are no absolute truths. There is a big implication that we must now address before continuing on with our analysis. It must be addressed now because it is the elephant in the room that the observations we have made thus far inevitably force us to accept. This implication is that there can obviously be no such thing as an absolute truth. An absolute truth being something that is fundamental quality of reality / the universe. Regardless of how much information we have, how much data, certainty, and observable proof, there is nothing that can be considered a quality of the universe / reality. As we have covered, we cannot experience or understand reality either partially or as a whole. This holds true for the concept of the universe as well. The universe and reality are interchangeable terms. In order to truly know anything fundamental in regard to either, the process that was mentioned earlier regarding the necessary conditions to experience reality must take place, essentially omniscience. Because of this, there are no absolute truths. We cannot know anything that is a fundamental intrinsic quality of reality or of the universe. What does this mean for our laws of physics, our observations on nature, and all of the advancements we have made thanks to these laws? Are these all false? But how can these not be true if we have established these laws and they are observably consistent? Is this reading suggesting that we entirely do away with the concept of truth and all the laws we have established? Let us take a deep breath and relax. Although we cannot state anything fundamental regarding the universe / reality, as a society, we need a system that aids us in evaluating information gathered from our direct and indirect environment for the purpose of our survival and development. With the realization that there are no absolute truths, we simply need to modify our approach towards the established system of truth so that we are not damaged by the underlying assumption it perpetuates. In a sense, we will take the good and leave the bad from our system of truth. What exactly is the underlying assumption our system comes with, and how does this damage us? If the system is meant to be descriptive of fundamental truths pertaining to the universe, then the underlying assumption that is inevitably dragged along is that we are experiencing reality and that we have the ability to understand the aforementioned. The grand majority of humanity believes that as we make discoveries pertaining to our direct and indirect environment, we are expanding our understanding of the universe and that we are experiencing reality. This is how our system of truth damages us. And although the system is absolutely necessary for our development and survival, it comes at a tremendous price to humanity. This great price we pay is that we are incapable of ultimately affecting our experience in a meaningful manner due to our incapacity to consciously affect the inputs resulting in our life experience. We do not bother to analyze what we are experiencing, since we already know this to be reality. This assumption is so deeply embedded and at such a structural level that we do not question this whatsoever, in the same manner that we do not question the ground on which we walk on. We firmly believe that the next step we take will be on solid ground and that we will not fall through. Questioning whether we experience reality or not would be the equivalent of seriously considering whether our next step will force us through the ground. There is no evidence that would suggest we would fall through, and all evidence actually points to the contrary, so there is no reason to think otherwise. Our entire infrastructure of knowledge is based on understanding the universe. And so now the question arises, how can we fix our approach to our system of truth in a manner that we do not have to embed within it the assumption that we are experiencing reality, and that our discoveries are indeed putting together, piece by piece, the great puzzle of the universe? The solution here is twofold. 1. To redefine exactly what it is we are explaining when we make discoveries, what it is that holds our understanding together, the organizational structure, and what these understandings pertain to. Currently, this is the universe. 2. To reclassify the observations we make as something other than absolute/fundamental truths descriptive of reality/the universe. 1. Redefining what holds our understanding. To address the first point, we will keep the same structure of organization. Our discoveries will indeed be explanatory of something. However, this something will no longer be the universe. What our discoveries will now be descriptive of, the structure that will serve as the base and hold all our knowledge, will be the conceivable universe. This may seem like an insignificant distinction, but it has wide-reaching implications. What exactly forms part of the conceivable universe? That which we can conceptualize, that which is something other than what is unknown. The content is irrelevant. What is important is the purpose of this new concept. The concept restricts the universe and acknowledges the unknown within our manner of organizing our knowledge, so that it is clear that what we discover is not a fundamental attribute of the universe/reality. The purpose of this is so that we can continue to establish observations regarding our environment that propagate our survival and development as a species, without having to pay the ultimate price of sacrificing the capacity to affect our life experience in a meaningful manner, due to believing we are experiencing reality. In this manner, we take the good and leave the bad from our system of truth. Note: at this point, the reader can ask, what does it matter what we think and how we classify what our discoveries are descriptive of? It is all just terminology, so what is the big deal? The big deal is that via our manner of thinking, we block ourselves from developing a thought structure that can open the doors to an understanding by which we can take back control of our destiny, the capacity to direct our life experience. It is easy to just dismiss something as, it's just a thought, or it's just terminology. But thoughts are the cause of everything, and this particular terminology opens the door to taking charge of our fate. 2. Reclassifying our observations. We have partially solved the problem regarding our system of truth. However, there is one more issue we must deal with. We need to establish a term to replace absolute truths with. These are no longer compatible with our new concept of the conceivable universe, since we acknowledge that we cannot, nor do we ever, observe anything regarding the totality of the universe/reality. We cannot assign the denomination of absolute truth to postulations that have the possibility of changing, not due to an intrinsic quality of what is being observed, but simply as a result of more information being unveiled. We must realize that these observations fall under interpretation and are neither absolute or reflective of reality/the universe. The realization that as we expand our knowledge, things we previously accepted as absolute truths change must force us to realize their true nature as mere interpretations. As such, rather than having absolute/fundamental truths, we will simply label our discoveries as truth, without the quality of being absolute. These truths will be descriptive of the conceivable universe and will have the possibility of changing if a higher truth, one that more accurately explains the conceivable universe, is discovered. Unlike absolute truths, truth is ever evolving. When something is disproved, it is replaced by a truer truth. At one point, we believed Earth was flat, and this was our truth. This served us up to a certain point. It was the best we could do, and at the time was proved beyond a reasonable doubt. However, when truer information was discovered, the truth was replaced and we established that Earth was a sphere. This is our truth for the moment, but nothing guarantees it will not one day be replaced. However, the fact that it may be replaced does not discredit its characteristic of truth. Note: one can argue, but of course there are absolute truths. No matter what, 2 plus 2 always equals 4. However, this is an example of a conceptual truth, and these are derived from conceptual structures that were created by man. These conceptual structures do not exist outside of our interpretation in reality, nor are they descriptive of said reality. These truths are true simply because they are results of conceptualized structures. In our example, the conceptualized structure is mathematics, and based on this, 2 plus 2 is always 4. Mathematics does not exist in reality, nor is it part of reality. It is an interpretation that helps us to understand and to thrive within the conceivable universe. Absolute truths pertain to that which is immutable. That which has the possibility of changing is not an absolute truth. An observation such as "this jar has 4 balls in it" is not an absolute truth, as this has the possibility of changing. Observations are not absolute truths, they are simply just that, observations. If not to understand the universe, what is the purpose of making discoveries? The question now stands: if we are no longer attempting to understand the universe, what will be our motivation, our purpose for making new discoveries? Should we simply stop striving to make new discoveries altogether? Not at all. Our motivation and purpose for establishing new discoveries will remain what it has always been at its root: to improve our quality of life and to gain understanding. We have always observed our immediate environment and indirect environment as well, in order to not only adapt to said environment for the purpose of survival, but also to harness the environment for the purpose of thriving. Our purpose for making discoveries is this, and thus there is no need to stop or reinvent the wheel looking for a new purpose. We are also curious beings, and satisfying our curiosity is purpose enough as well. Regarding truth, in conclusion, making discoveries does not expand our understanding of the universe/reality. It merely allows for better adaptation of humanity as a species by granting us understanding of the conceivable universe. The pursuit of discoveries allows us to improve our quality of life and expand our truth. But there is no greater structure, the universe, of which we are grasping a deeper understanding of. This is the point we miss. The implementation for this change that is being suggested to our system of truth does not require any major alterations at the societal level. Everything would remain the same, and our process of establishing truth based on observable phenomena remains as is. The only variable that changes is the awareness of the individual that reaches a higher truth and allows said individual to expand their dominion over their life experience. Just as advancements in technology grant us the ability to expand our dominion over the physical world, awareness allows us to expand our dominion over our life experience. This is a change that takes a bottom-up approach. The freeing of the mind, stickiness of ideas. The knowledge that there are no absolute truths frees our mind and opens us as individuals towards gaining further capacities previously not accessible to us, which will allow us to affect our life experience in new and meaningful ways. This is a dimension of the human experience that can be considered new territory, in the sense that it has not been fully understood/explored. Being flexible with our ideas allows us to constantly expand our capacities as individuals. Concepts are merely vehicles or tools that we are able to use in order to transmit certain capacities. Once the capacity has been acquired, the individual no longer needs to hold on to the conceptual structure. If there is no additional benefit to holding on to the conceptualization, it ought to be let go of. When we hold on to conceptual structures as the one and only truth, we block ourselves from acquiring new capacities. This restrictive manner of living comes about due to our background assumption that what we are experiencing is indeed reality. If something is true, abides to logic, and has pragmatic value, and we are indeed experiencing reality, anything that contradicts not only the final truth, but also any concepts used to help establish said truth, is automatically discarded by us as false. Since we are not aware yet of the nature of truth, we do not know any better. The issue is not that we found truth, it is that we believe we found absolute truth, and this will, from then on, until we adopt a new absolute truth, block our development by restricting our capacity to expand the ways in which we are able to ultimately affect our life experience. Our absolute truth might change, which the situation itself is an oxymoron. But our obsession with these and our endless search for the one truth restricts us throughout the entire course of our lives. This obsession with the absolute truth, with finding the meaning of life, etc., is rooted in the notion that we believe this to be possible. We believe we are experiencing reality, what is, and, as such, it should be plausible to uncover such mysteries. There are conceptual structures, creations, that grant us higher capacities to ultimately affect our experience in ways we were previously unable to do so via the acquisition of awareness. However, these structures, conceptualizations that this book is an example of, come, and this is inevitable, with certain postulations the reader must accept if they are to obtain the awareness the conceptual structure is attempting to imbue. For example, this book uses certain terminology, reality, the universe, absolute truth, etc. The reader must agree with, temporarily, in order for the message that is being transmitted to be delivered effectively. However, these concepts/ideas themselves tend to stick to the individual even once the higher capacity the book or conceptual structure was trying to imbue has been assimilated. This is what is termed the stickiness of ideas. The reader is now, in a sense, blocked from interacting and truly considering any other conceptual structure that might use certain terminology and present certain ideas in a different light than what the individual has already been exposed to. This is because, when dealing with absolute truths, any information that does not conform to that which was previously accepted can only be contradictory. We fail to grasp that words are merely tools, the vehicles by which understanding is transmitted. The ideas and terminology might be different, but if the conceptual construction abides by logic and has pragmatic value, it is representative of truth and thus is valid. The individual misses on gaining whatever capacity the conceptual truth might have imbued within them due to the stickiness of ideas. Their fixation to concepts take priority and overshadow the pursuit and attainment of truth. This is why the truth regarding the nature of truth is such a valuable one. It allows for us to open ourselves up to gain many higher capacities due to our flexibility and lack of stickiness of ideas. Nothing forces us to keep the ideas or concepts from any conceptual construction that we consciously accept forever. Our accepting an idea no longer has to have any further implications outside of the simple act of temporarily subscribing to said idea. Neither does the idea make us into anything. Letting go of conceptual structures. Once we acquire what we are seeking, the higher capacity, we can let go of the conceptual construction, the tool we use to obtain our goal. We must not live for the sake of structures, for the sake of finding or representing the absolute truth. For when we live in this manner, our life experience mostly remains unchanged until the day of our death. One can argue that if we let go of the premises that grant us the higher capacity, we will inevitably lose said capacity, and as such, we must hold on to said conceptualizations. This, however, is simply not true. When one is learning to drive a car, do they forget how to ride a bike? And further, was what kept the individual from forgetting how to ride a bike while they were learning to drive a car the fact that they kept the conceptual knowledge of how to ride a bike at the forefront of their mind? No, of course not. The truth of learning how to ride a bike does in no way contradict the truth of learning how to drive a car, because there is more than one vehicle to learn how to drive. If it was believed that there was only one vehicle to learn how to drive, an absolute vehicle, then the knowledge would indeed be contradicting, and one of these structures of knowledge would obviously have to be what is, and thus would inevitably invalidate the other. In the same manner, if we can only accept one truth per concept or one conceptual structure per classification, any following truths will seem to go against the first, and we will subsequently not be able to accept them without contradicting ourselves. However, there is no need to reconcile concepts or conceptual structures as a whole, since these do not pertain to what is, and so they cannot contradict each other. Rather, they complement one another within the individual as awareness. Initially, when we are new to a conceptual structure, the concepts are very important, and much attention is needed to be placed on these. The individual essentially has to accept and hold on to said concepts. However, once the individual gets the hang of it, they can let go of all the concepts, as they no longer need them to use the higher capacity that was instilled upon them. Think of learning to drive a car. At first, one has to memorize the concepts and learn all the rules, but once a couple of weeks pass, the individual no longer needs to recall the conceptualizations and can simply drive. The capacity they gained is no longer dependent on their fixation upon the concepts. If the individual now goes to Europe and obtains their license there, despite certain driving laws being contradictory to the ones they have previously learned, the individual will return to the United States and will be able to continue driving without having lost this capacity. The power that freeing our minds from the stickiness of ideas imbues us with, through the realization that there are no absolute truths, is that it opens us up to the nature of truth. This in turn allows us to expand our horizons in a manner that was previously inaccessible to us. Humanity has a tendency to lean towards the stickiness of ideas since we are looking for the absolute truth. This search is the root of our delusion that must be overcome. This is also why many conceptual structures themselves suffer from the stickiness of ideas. They reflect the awareness of the individuals who created them. Everyone believes they are the ones with the truth. They are able to see what nobody else can. They might indeed have truth, but they are not the only ones. Just as a vehicle is a tool that takes us to a destination and is crucial for us to be able to experience that destination, the conceptual structures are tools that serve as a sort of vehicle that allows us to obtain new capacities. We are our own oppressors. We all feel a sense of oppression in one way or another, and we always find someone or something to call our oppressor. The root of this feeling is that we are actually oppressing our own existence without realizing it. We are meant to expand our awareness to ultimately affect our experience in new ways previously not possible, just as a cheetah is meant to run wild. However, we keep ourselves from this freedom by imprisoning ourselves via the erroneous underlying assumption we hold, which is that we are experiencing reality, and thus our search for the absolute truth is validated. The conceptual structures or concepts we hold as absolute truths are the bars to our prison, which we cannot see and which we ironically fight tooth and nail to defend. In this sense, we perpetuate our own captivity. There is nothing wrong with structure, as this gives us a sense of stability and a way to piece things together. The problem comes when we outgrow such structure, conceptualizations, but are too attached to the concepts as absolute truths and cannot move away from them. This is where the conceptual structure becomes our prison. The even bigger problem comes when we turn into the oppressors of others by attempting to fit them in a cage made up of a conceptual structure in which they have no business being in to begin with. Remember, the purpose of conceptual structures is to advance the awareness and capacities of humans. The structures are merely vehicles to turn structures into prisons and make these something that, rather than serving humanity, submit humanity, is the most sadistic thing imaginable. Yet this is somehow the state of affairs for us as humanity. This book is not an absolute truth or the way things are. Just as everything we conceptualize is not an absolute truth, this book, this process, is no different. It is not indicative of the way things are, but simply a conceptual construction that aims to expand our awareness and thus grant us a capacity that will ultimately allow us to affect our experience in ways previously not possible. If there are no absolute truths, absolutely nothing is descriptive or indicative of what is, nor can anything ever be. People can achieve the goal of gaining the capacity to direct their life experience and, consequently, eliminating or decreasing suffering and dissatisfaction without ever considering a structured arrangement based on conceptual logic. They can rely on faith, on silence, love, etc. There are countless ways of obtaining the results. Logic is only one of them. It is one of the many paths, and this book, being an example of a conceptualization based on logic, is only one among many in its class. What matters is not finding the absolute truth, since there is no such thing. We must not become enamored with the pursuit of a system that is simply meant to be a tool to use for the sake of obtaining a specific result. Download the complete book in order to follow along from the website. The link is in both the video and the channel description. Thank you so much.